30 seconds to start.
We're underway with our 39 riders and our elite men as they are taking off right there. So the elite men, Blevins winning our first cross-country race. He won the short track yesterday as well. It was Riley Amos in second. Guess what? Riley Amos was second in the short track. Zorek Paye, the young 21-year-old, finishing up third in the cross-country. And it was Owen Clark finishing up in fourth. Today's race is going to be about an hour and 15 minutes as we're waiting for the riders to come around. They're going to do a starter lap, and then they're going to start counting down 7 laps to go, as right now starting to be able to string things out. Joining me in the booth, a little bit of a treat, something a little bit different, is Todd Wells, a 17-year professional, 12-time national champion, a 3-time Pan American champion as well. Very experienced with the mountain biking, and right now, kind of watching what these guys are doing, trying to be able to string it out. Todd, having the call-ups, obviously super important, being on those first 2 rows. But what is it like in the beginning? Like how much risk versus reward do you do during the first couple laps and trying to be able to move yourself up to a good position?
Sure, it depends. All of these riders, they're a little different. A guy like Chris Blevins or Riley Amos, they might be able to take it a little bit easier at the start. If they don't get the best start. We saw Riley had a little trouble on Wednesday, I believe, was able to make his way back up through the group. But if you start a little further back and you can get a good start, then it's really beneficial to get in there early.
Out of the saddle right now in that white jersey, that's going to be Devin Feehan with Dirt Camp Racing. So he's deciding he wants to string it out. That's Blevins on the far left-hand side in that red jersey. He's got number plate number 1. Blevins practically undefeated here in Fayetteville year after year going over the last 5 years. Short track he lost in 2024 to Ben Oliver, and that's one of the few losses that Blevins has ever had here. Last year in 2025, actually, yeah, he took the victory even after training, putting a lot of training in, riding about 3 hours before he came out and did this hard cross-country race. But Blevins right now, he admitted that he's changed his training program in order to be able to be a little bit better a little bit later on, because the World Cup start later on and everything kind of is elongated. When you were racing, Todd, how much did you usually stick with the same kind of training program year after year, or did you kind of mix it up depending on what your goals, and how often did your goals change?
Yeah, I would mix it up some, but for the most part, I would do a full mountain bike season and then go into cyclocross. So our World Cup also, it would start April usually. And so by the time you finish cyclocross, take a little break, get going with some of these earlier season races. We would always have Sea Otter early on. It'd be pretty similar. There isn't a ton of time for different training, but this track you're talking about, Chris, he, this is a perfect track for him. Fast, punchy, tactical. We can see the group coming through the start-finish here, and he's so good at just floating to the front of the group, getting to the front, using as little energy as possible, and then he's obviously a very explosive rider.
Yeah, yesterday we saw that in the short track, probably one of the most explosive riders they have out there, as looks like slotting into second position with that red jersey. Blevins still following Devin Feehan, as Feehan remains on the front right now as they're starting to head into the woods. They're going to hit some technical issues with the rocks and the bumpy. In general, Todd, did you enjoy like super technical issues, or were you more a power rider, liked it to be a little bit flatter, or maybe bigger, longer climbs or shorter climbs? What was usually your preference when you were racing?
Yeah, it's funny. I raced for quite a while. I started in '96 and finished in 2015 or 17. So we had all sorts of courses. When I started, the courses were much longer, big laps, winning time 2.5 hours. When I finished, the races were more like they are now, shorter Olympic-style distance, about 1.5 hours. So, I kind of evolved as the race courses did, but I always like I'm a bigger guy, so a course with less climbing is something I always enjoyed.
Riders here with a little bit of some short, steep climbs. Nothing obviously very long. Don't gain a lot of altitude. Only gain about 350 feet of elevation gain each lap. 2.9 miles around for the big laps as they just came through, seeing 7 laps to go.
Yeah, I think that's a pivot rider's come to the front. I can't get a number on that rider, but this course, it's hot out here today, Frankie. It's probably mid-80s, would you say?
It's mid-80s right now. Yeah, definitely. That sun's shining down. And you talk about that pivot rider, and he ended up having a flat tire on the day number 1 was Gunnar Holmgren. He attacked from the gun and was stringing it out, and he just stayed on the front lap after lap, just tossing guys out the back, punching tickets from the front as guys were getting dropped. And Gunnar Holmgren, but then he suffered a mechanical, had a flat tire, ended up getting nothing, but 100% on day number 1 in that cross country. Gunnar Holmgren was one of the strongest riders in the race.
Yeah, this course, it's rough out there. I don't know if you can tell from TV, but I did a couple of laps yesterday, and, I'm not surprised with the flat tires we see, and it's just when you come down off that high point of the course, the rock garden that they'll get to here in a little bit, you hit a couple of jumps, and then you go through these just really high speed rock gardens that you're going too fast to avoid the rocks, and you try to shoot for the smooth line, but it's shaded in the trees and it's bright sun when you're not in the trees, so it's hard to get your eyes to adjust quick enough, and it's very rough out there.
Yeah, and obviously not level, so you got those sharp edges of the sides of the rocks coming out that have cut some tires. We saw that evident in some of our earlier races as well. Looks like a lead group of maybe 6 starting to separate themselves, getting a little bit of a gap. And so if you have a group of 6 like this starting to be able to separate themselves, let's say you got 3 or 4 seconds and you're in like 7th, 8th, and 9th, do you got to try to close that gap all at once, or can you take your time to try to close that gap? How does that work when you're playing out, especially in a 7-lap race?
Yeah, I think these guys will take their time to close any gaps. There's quite a bit of drafting out here on the flatter sections, but if the gaps open on these kind of steeper, rocky, either climbs or descents, you don't have to panic. Early on, 7-lap race, the heat is going to be a big factor today. I think you can kind of take your time, and you don't want to give them 20 seconds, but a few seconds here and there, I think it's okay. And I also think not risking it on these descents. Like I said, there's so many places to flat. This climb right here, this rocky climb, this is one of the most painful parts of the course, I think.
So that's Gunnar Holmgren that we were just talking about, right? Because you lose a lot more time if you flat, obviously, than just maybe backing it off a little bit. So Holmgren in first, and you can see the A line and the B line. Blevins taking it off to the right-hand side. Riley Amos is going to probably be up there as well. He's had 2 good rides, showing a ton of endurance and strength, and that's Riley Amos right now, currently sitting in 3rd in that Stars and Stripes jersey. He's wearing that because he's the current cross-country national champion. He's a previous under-23 world champion as well, as Holmgren continues to be able to bomb the descents and the uphills. I thought earlier in that cross-country race, Gunnar Holmgren was actually bombing some of the descents, I think, trying to be able to test Christopher Blevins on what he can do on the downhills. But we all know Blevins very talented no matter what the course conditions are. Right now it's a matter of strength and fitness as Holmgren continues to be able to ride on the front.
Yeah, Holmgren, last year he had a little bit of a rougher year, so it's great to see him come out firing this year, and he's part of that pivot team out of Canada. A lot of the top Canadian guys are riding for that pivot team, and we've seen them all have some good results this early season, so I imagine they're feeding off one another. But yeah, tough job to drop Chris Blevins on a descent, that's for sure.
Keeping an eye on each other, not letting anybody get too far away. Holmgren continues to be able to open up that gap. Riley Amos is able to just latch onto the back with Blevins. That's a good combo to be able to ride with, the 2 of them. We've seen in some of the other races, the rider goes away solo. You got two riders maybe from the same team. And that's the question. How much working together is there on a course like this? If Blevins and Riley Amos find themselves 6 seconds, 10 seconds off the back of Gunnar Holmgren very early on in this race, is it still a game of tactics and strategy, or will those two actually work together to be able to bring back a leader to see what they can do a little bit later on?
Yeah, for mountain biking, for this course in particular, there is some drafting. Yesterday and today are some of the calmest days I think I've ever seen up here at Centennial Park. Usually, we sit a couple 100 feet above town here, and the wind is usually howling up here. But today, I think any wind they have out there will be welcome with it being so hot. The start-finish straight is a good area to draft. There's some sections in the grass on the backside of the course where you can get some drafting. But in this single track, the climbs, the descents, it's more a mental thing of being part of the group and not letting that group go, more than it is a physical benefit to be sitting on the wheel. So where there are some sections it can help, most of the course it's more mental. That said, if one of these riders were to get a gap, I would imagine if the other two were evenly matched and didn't think they could jump across to him, they would probably be willing to work together, help bring him back. We are pretty early in this lap, just getting ready to complete lap 1 here pretty soon. So I don't know, they might look at each other a little bit. This tech zone that they're going through here, there's 2 tech feeds on the course, and this tech zone, I guess you would call that tech zone 2. That is, I think they see the most action as far as mechanical changes in that tech zone. You go through a lot of the rougher, rockier parts just before that tech zone. And here they're getting ready to go and hit this new section of the course for this year. It's the drop. I think they're calling this World Cup.
World Cup 5 is that 6-foot drop. I think they just went off of that, taking that right-hand turn. Some might be taking the B line, but obviously guys who are experienced and comfortable are going to take that A line with that World Cup 5 drop. The 6th one is, again, the 3 riders all together as Holmgren continues to be able to push on the pace. Gunnar Holmgren, 26 years old, a brand new team, moving over to Pivot this year for the very first year. So he's looking forward to putting in a good impression. He started off racing earlier this year, 3 times second place in Puerto Rico. So he's off to a good start right now as Blevins is on the wheel and Riley Amos sitting in 3rd. Question will be when they come through our start-finish line, how big of a gap to the chasers is going to be out there. Remember, we had Blevins, Riley Amos, Zorek Paye, Owen Clark, and Tyler Orschel. Those were your top 5 in day number 1 for the cross country.
Yeah, the Canadians are having a good start to this early season.
Pivot Cycling specifically, they've been all over the podium with all of these guys. So, yeah, very well put. Once again, my name is Frankie Andreu, joined in the booth for our complete men's race with Todd Wells, former multi-time national champion, pro mountain biker, and cyclocross rider, coming in to be able to help kind of call the action and explain a lot of what's going on there. There's that chase group coming in right behind them. That's going to be probably at least about a 20-second gap, trying to be able to wait to see what's going to happen there. Tyler Orschel, one of the riders in there in that light kind of greenish jersey. And guys coming now into Stonehenge, coming up to Talladega Turn. And when they make that turn, they're going to be coming in to be able to see 6 laps to go.
Yeah, I bet these guys sit up here down this start-finish straight. This is one of the sections you can get a little draft, a little bit of recovery. So they have a gap. No big hurry right now. Just recover, get something to drink, cool off a little, get ready to go out on lap number 2.
Clark, Orschel, and Sprenger making their way through. They're just going to be followed by Beard and Carter Woods.
Yeah, Beard and Carter Woods, they're close behind there. I would imagine that group will come back together. Jack Sprenger, he's a U23. He's racing up in the elite field today. Last year, U23, part of our U.S. national mountain bike team. So we got another big group coming through here. I see Cole Patton in there, a gravel racer. He was a XC racer, raced the World Cup for a little bit, took a couple of years off, raced gravel. It's nice to see him back out here on the cross-country circuit.
Yeah, I was just looking at my notes here, and I'm not sure what happened. I've got to look through here again. Zorek Paye, who's on that pivot team. He was super strong, young 21-year-old. Again, instead of racing in the U23 division, he raced up in the elite division, at least in the first cross-country race. But don't see him on my start list today as Jack Spranger coming out of that U23. I think, is Spranger still in the U23 or is he out of its U23?
Yep, this is his last year U23.
So Spranger decided to be able to ride up as well in the elite, trying to be able to go for maximum points. And he's in a good position right now, battling it out right now for 4th, 5th, and 6th, along with Orschel, Owen Clark. And Spranger is in there as well. Owen Clark, one of those riders on pivot cycles as well. Owen Clark, a young first-year elite. So he just aged out of that under 23. Owen Clark finds himself up there. He was 5th in the short track and right now currently sitting 5th in very early on in this cross-country race.
Yeah, Owen, I believe he had a bad training crash this winter.
He did in November. He got hit by a car and definitely had to recover. Had to have for Owen Clark, he's 23 years old, had to have a 4-level spinal fusion after getting hit by a car. So I can only imagine how hard and long that recovery would be. And obviously wintertime for all these high-end athletes, that's a critical time in base and foundation building, isn't it?
Yep, that's one of the only times you have an uninterrupted block to really put in whatever it is you're working on. Typically, they do a bigger volume, but if you're working on specific type of intensity efforts, it's really the only time you're not either recovering from a race or getting ready for a race. So wintertime is probably the biggest training time for all of these athletes.
And Owen Clark would have missed a lot of that. So he actually did some proper work to be able to get himself up to, because he went to Rock Creek and was second on 2 of the days over there at Rock Creek. And again, the level difference from going from under 23 to elite. This is a first-year elite for Owen Clark as well. And that's got to be a pretty big jump. I mean, you're having a camp and coaching with USA Cycling with some of these juniors and U23s. And you know the elite. So Riley Amos, kind of the exception, right? I mean, to be so good as a U23, he can just blend into that elite category pretty easily. But for most of the others, that's a big gap, a big jump, isn't it?
It's a really big jump. And even Riley, 2 years ago, he won the World Cup for the short track and cross country, won the short track world championships, had this incredible season. And last year he had some good results, but I don't think he had the season he was hoping to. And so even for the best U23s, it's hard to make the jump to the elite. And the same thing with the juniors coming up to the U23s. You know, it's a tough jump. Sometimes we get jaded because we only see the top U23s transition to elite or the top juniors transition to U23. But it's a really big jump, especially when you're a good U23 rider or a good junior and you're used to being able to control your effort. You go hard on the first lap. There's a couple guys or girls left with you, and you really are within yourself, and you bump up a category, and all of a sudden you go hard on the first lap and you're in 30th place, and it's just it's a different kettle of fish.
What is the biggest difference, though? Is it because of the power or the speed or being able to, the anaerobic, the intensity part? Like what is the biggest difference when you're going from a U23 to elite?
I think it's all of those things. I think the elites, obviously, everyone develops at a different rate. So there are some juniors or U23s that come into elite and they may be almost fully developed. But then there are other U23s that improve a lot as they become elite. But one thing that is the same for everybody, it's just being surrounded by a lot more riders that are all the similar level to you. So instead of having to worry about a few people, everybody in that field is good. So I think that's a big transition, and some of the riders are able to make that transition easier than others. So I'd say it's more of a mental transition.
Gunnar Holmgren around the front, he's been out of that U23 for a while, 26 years old. That blue jersey riding on the front, brand new team I mentioned, riding for Pivot Cycles. Last year here at these races, he was 19th and 14th. So a big difference right now. As long as he stays in that group, he's going to be a top 3 right there. Top 3 podium. The order is still to be decided, as Blevins looking very comfortable riding behind him. And sometimes, would you have a strategy of just sitting back and letting somebody just kind of ride in the front and kind of hopefully that maybe they burn themselves out? Like if you're comfortable sitting in second position, is that something you would do, or is it more comfortable to ride at the front the way Gunnar is doing?
Yeah, I think, Chris, he obviously, if you watch his typical race, this is kind of how he does it. He sits back, he lets the other guys go off the front or pull or lead or whatever you want to say. But then, I feel like he can pull it back when he wants to. So for him, he prefers to ride like this, whereas someone like Gunnar, maybe he's, he wants to have a clear line, pick his lines. I think he maybe had some issues earlier in the week with some mechanicals, so maybe he just wants a clear track. But Gunnar used to be a figure skater before he was a cyclist.
Did not know that.
Yeah, exactly. A little fun fact about Gunnar.
That'll develop some legs, absolutely. You might be missing the aerobic component of it, but you're going to have that strength and weightlifting part. I mean, if you got to do those jumps, you're going to have some pretty strong legs. And so coming from figure skating to one of the elite top mountain bikers in the entire world is Gunnar Holmgren's leading him through our HC race right now. Once again, it's the Walmart Pro Cup, fueled by Honey Stingers. We're watching our pro men, 3 riders, Gunnar Holmgren. Blevins in the red jersey, and then the national champion Stars and Stripes jersey is that of Riley Amos. Riley finished up second in the short track. I don't want to say would have won the HC on day number 1, but he definitely would have been there with Blevins on day number 1. He got kind of tussled up into a little bit of a crash and had to be able to make back a ton of time. Passed a bunch of people to end up second. Coming off a 7th place at the Olympics. That was a great result for Riley Amos there, as these 3 guys are going to be able to pay attention to what kind of gap they have in the 4 chasers that are behind him, including Tyler Orschel, Owen Clark, and Jack Springer.
Yeah, Riley, I think this year, like I said, last year was his first year in Elite. He had a little tougher transition, but this year he's been done a little bit of riding with him so far, and it seems like, to me, he's stronger this year than he was last year. It's almost like he's back to his 2024 level.
So in a way, you kind of learn a lesson. Like, you move up to the Elite, it's a tough transition for you, and then you realize, like, hey, I mean, sometimes you get to the top of the game, you tend to relax a little bit because you're the best. And so now you realize, hey, there's a lot of guys that are better than me, and you got to put in a little bit extra work. And perhaps that's what Riley realized, that you need to be able to put in a little bit of that extra work, and it's paid off. I mean, he's wearing that Stars and Stripes jersey, had a great ride at the Olympics, and right now finds himself in the top 3. Nice shot right there of our chasers making their way through. I got 3 of those names that were together last lap. Obviously, they've been joined by 2 others, so that group of 3 expanding to a group of 5 as they're getting ready to head towards World Cup 5, the 6-foot drop.
Yep, I saw Austin Beard join that chase group. I couldn't see the other rider in there, but that's a strong group, and they're having those guys together. It's hot out there. Everybody's suffering. It's nice to have some company out there and be able to be into that chase group. So I think Austin getting into that group, that'll give him a big boost of confidence. He also had a little bit of a rougher year last year. So it's great to see some riders who maybe last year didn't go as they had hoped come out here, start the early season strong. This, Frankie, but it's funny. 1 year, everything seems to go right. You can't do anything wrong. And then the next year, you feel like you do the same thing and nothing works. So it's great to see these guys stick with it, and it's nice to see them having a good start to the season.
That's Troy Chipka we're watching right now. Spin Bike Shop, trying to be able to figure out that technique to get over those bricks on that uphill. Leaning way over the handlebars, turning the pedals over. We've seen a lot of riders, when you're on that brick kind of uphill, a lot of riders with a very small gear spinning it. Other riders have used like kind of a bigger power gear. Is one better than the other?
That's a preference thing, but that rock climb there, it looks flat on TV. No, that climb is not flat.
I look at it, and for me, it almost looks like it's the hardest part of the entire course.
I would say that is true. And those rocks, it's not like those rocks are placed there and they made that uphill rock garden. So sometimes on a normal trail that just kind of flows through the woods, you'll get a smoother line between some of the rock obstacles. But with those, it is rough the whole way up them.
Yeah, challenging conditions here. Ty Katie changing out that course. Being Riley Amos coming through now on the attack. Going over the top, taking a sip of water. Now's the time to be able to drink and fuel yourselves through that smoother section through our start-finish line. They just came through seeing 5 laps to go. So your leaders now, Riley Amos on the attack. Is Holmgren going to go after him, or is Blevins going to go after him? And there's your answer. I saw the red jersey in second position now trying to be able to attack. Now, Holmgren has been leading for the last 2 laps. Is he going to be able to stay on the front as our chasers come through? As that is going to be, again, Owen Clark, Tyler Orschel, Jack Springer, Carter Woods, and Justin Beard. And that time gap getting up to the leaders is going to be 25 seconds. So these guys 25 seconds back.
Yeah, Riley, he had been sick a little bit earlier in the week, had a little stomach thing, some allergy stuff. And so I was talking to him. He was pretty happy with how the week's gone so far. Didn't know how good he would be coming into this one. So that said, it's nice to see him being up there in the front group. And it looks like he's putting in a little dig right now. Probably wanted to get into this downhill section first, maybe see if he gets a little separation, how much those guys will chase, and if they're going to let him go, he'll probably take whatever time they'll give him. Here we see Austin Beard coming to the front of that chase group. Austin Beard and his brother, both from Vermont. They both live out in Colorado now, and they've also, like I said, last year they had some problems, broken wrist. They got one of them got a weird lung thing when they were staying over in Czech for the World Cup 2 years ago, and so they've had a rough go. We see Ivan Sippy coming through here segment as well, so nice to see those guys up there.
Yeah, Austin's brother is Austin and Carson Beard. Austin last year was 7th here at the cross country race. He picked up the win in the under 23 division last year. He was U23. That was in Canmore. So talking about moving up a division, he's one of those riders moving up a division as well, but he finds himself fighting it out there with Tyler Orschel, Carter Woods, Owen Clark, Austin Beard, and Jack Springer. Carter Woods has been around for a while, a very experienced rider as well.
Yep, another top Canadian rider. Canada, they've always produced some amazing mountain bike racers, both men and women. Some of our courses up there in Canada for the World Cup, Mount St. Anne has been a staple on the circuit for a long time. We had one in Vancouver quite a while ago, one in, I'm spacing the third one kind of in the middle of the country. But, the tracks in Canada, looks like Riley and Chris have dropped Gunner.
Big effort from Gunner, paying the price right now as Riley and Chris have now accelerated off the front. That's kind of similar to what happened with the short track. But Gunnar Holmgren, again, he ended up not being able to be with the leaders because of a flat tire. So there's Gunnar right there. I was like, hopefully he didn't have a problem and, experience the same kind of mechanical as he did on day number 1. But he's just a little bit off the back. So it's going to come up to the first 2. How much are they willing to press on and put the pressure on to keep a gap? Or is Gunnar going to be able to gradually make this back as they're flying on this downhill section as Riley Amos trying to be able to see? Gunnar, I've noticed that he's a very good downhill rider. He can definitely gain a little bit of time on the downhill, but again, you got to be able to have the legs to be able to keep on the uphill. Carter Woods, 5-time national champion, sitting there with Tyler Orschel and Austin Beard and Jack Springer. Springer last year picking up a win here also in, I think it was our U23 or the junior division, because I think
U23.
he's new coming up.
No, Jack was U23 last year. So this is actually his last year in U23. So he's having a good ride.
But a fantastic ride, absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like Riley and Chris, they're separating a little bit. Gunnar, I don't know, maybe he was pushing harder on the downhills. These guys were taking it easy, trying to conserve energy. Hard to tell, but here we are back on this climb.
He's kind of right there. It's not, he didn't blow up. He didn't get shelled. I think the attack surprised him. And the biggest difference is Gunnar can pace himself back, but Blevins is so explosive. He could just go across the gap. He's like one of the most explosive riders in the world. He's got that fast twitch muscles that not many riders can be able to challenge. So for Blevins to go across a gap is it's easier for him than maybe somebody for Gunnar. So Gunnar's got to pace himself out a little bit. But the question is, Riley Amos, with the way he's going, can Gunnar pace himself back up to the leaders?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. This climb here that they're coming up, this is one of the longer climbs on the course. You kind of come from the bottom of the course, you do that rock section, then you're still climbing up here to the top of this. I believe they're going to go up the rock staircase area there. Yep. And so this would be the high point, and you almost come from the low point. So this is one of the longest climbs on the course. And again, it's hot out there. Sun's beating down on you when it opens up out of the woods here. And yeah, you don't want to overdo it and overheat out here today.
Yeah, riders coming down Arvest Mountain as they're making their way around, and you get a little bit of shade from the trees, but it's very different than summertime. There's no canopy. There's not all the leaves are not on the trees, and that's why we're able to have these great drone shots here, brought to you by InsiderMTB, bringing all of our live web stream today, brought to you by Arkansas Tourism. 4 days of our live web stream, being able to bring some of the top athletes in the entire mountain bike world to your screen to be able to watch and keep track of your loved ones and how they're doing here. Right now, Gunnar Holmgren, the Canadian rider, sitting in second. The two Americans, Blevins and Riley Amos, just about, I'm going to call it about a 3-second gap as Riley really continues to be able to push the pace right there.
Yeah, see, that is a rough rock area where it's easy to flat. So I don't know if Riley was pushing it through there. Chris maybe let off a little bit, try to make sure he made it through there, keeping all the air in his tires. But
so in a race like this, how much focus is there on preventing your equipment from malfunctioning? From a flat tire to rattling your chain off. I mean, because obviously it's super bumpy and everything that's going on. How cognizant do you have to be of that, or can you just pedal flat out all the time?
No, these guys are very cognizant of it, especially on a course like this where you can see it's very hard packed, so it's fast. And these trails, most of them are pretty graded. We do have some steep climbs, but the speed is relatively high on this track. And there are probably 4 or 5 rocky sections that you have to be careful on per lap of this elite course. So, you might give up 5-10 seconds to make it through all of those rock sections safe each lap. Just 1 second, 2 seconds slower per section, knowing you're going to preserve your equipment, and then roll back up to the rider if you're feeling pretty well. If you're on your limit and it's everything you have to do to stay on the wheel,
then you just risk it.
You risk it,
especially on the last lap. Then you just risk it.
Definitely.
You traveled around the world doing a ton of different mountain bike courses. Did you have a favorite, or a favorite race, I guess I should say?
Yeah, I always liked the World Cup. We had one in Houffalize in Belgium. It's the little town that there's the famous picture from Liège-Bastogne-Liège of everybody riding up between the houses. And it was right in that area, and it was just, it was a picturesque little European town with big old buildings, little river running through it, and the fans in Europe, as you know, are so passionate and crazy, and in Belgium especially. So to have a track that's a couple kilometers long and all those fans packed in, it was just always a pleasure to race there.
Got some big energy, and that's the same thing that's happening here. Right here at our start-finish line, there's not a whole lot of people around because they are all down at the key sections on the course. So a ton of fans have come up here to Centennial Park, spread out along the course, cheering on these riders as they're making their way around. Of course, there's some favorite sections on the experienced Fayetteville Power Climb, Arvest Mountain, and the World Cup 5, watching them go off that 6-foot drop as our 3 leaders have dwindled down to 2, but he's right there. He is right there. He's not giving up, and of course he's not going to give up. I mean, there's a lot of racing still to go, and you never know what's going to happen right there, but Gunnar leading for the first 2 laps, still right on the heels of our lead 2 riders, which is Riley Amos and Christopher Blevins.
Yeah, it looks like Riley's still on the front. It's hard to say if Gunnar is bringing them back or they're easing up, but it definitely looks like they're coming back together. They'll be coming through the start-finish here, in the next minute or so. So it'll be interesting to see if Riley and Chris push on the pavement here, or if they sit up and Gunnar's able to get back on the wheel.
An indication of how hard these 2 are going will be the chase group behind as well. Besides Gunnar, the 4 riders, as last lap, they were 25 seconds down. So maybe they'll still be 25 seconds down. Maybe it'll be a little bit more because, remember, Riley Amos attacked and put down the pressure. So it could be one of their faster laps. Last lap, they did 10 minutes and 29 seconds as they're coming into Stonehenge, getting ready for a few final turns to be able to make their way around. And then how frustrating is it for Gunnar? It's like you're so close and you're almost there, but you're not there.
Definitely. And yeah, like I said, this is one of the areas on the track where you can get a little draft. And so him obviously chasing this whole time, he would love to be able to get on the wheel here. But yeah, it looks like Chris and Riley are holding that holding that same gap. Oh, here goes Riley with an attack down the start-finish straight. He must not want to let Gunner back on. You know, for Chris, he's probably pretty confident in his sprint. He's one of the best sprinters in the world on the mountain bike. And so if he comes to the group with these guys, he's probably pretty confident that he's got a good shot of winning. But Riley, it looks like he doesn't want this group to come back together, and he'd obviously – it's always nicer to finish on your own than with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's less risky, right? You don't want to chance it. So Gunnar Holmgren only 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders, and that last lap was 15 seconds than what they did before. That was 10 minutes and 14 seconds. The lap before, they did 10 minutes and 30 seconds, and that's because Riley Amos has been attacking the same way he just did through the start-finish line. Now, excuse me, now we got Austin Beard, Owen Clark, Jack Springer, Carter Woods, and Tyler Orschel making their way through, and
yeah, Austin's still on the front, dragging this group around. Again, great descender. That is Austin, right? Not Carson?
Well, I don't know. I'm going by what you told me. No. It is. It's Austin, 100%. That is Austin. And they're going to be 40 seconds back. So Austin Beard, 40 seconds back. So, again, that group was 25 seconds back. Now they are over 40 seconds back. So that's an indication that those lead three are actually going pretty hard, getting a little bit bigger gap. At some point, these guys are going to realize that they're, top three are up the road, and they're going to be racing for 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, trying to be able to get those maximum HC points. More riders making their way in. Gentlemen, it's 4 laps to go. 4 to go, 4 to go.
Yep, look like Devin Feehan and Cole Patton just came through together. I don't know if you saw it earlier in the week, Jerry DeFore from that Dirt Camp Racing, he had a pretty big crash on the drop, that new 6-foot drop. He got a little kick sideways, slid out coming into it, and ended up, he was I talked to him a little bit earlier, he was trying to stop, realized he wasn't going to stop as he was going off of it, and he has the crash posted on his Instagram, and it looks bad, but he was fine.
He's okay?
Little banged up, but again, everything on TV, it looks flatter, looks smaller. You go stand by that drop and think about falling off of it. It's not what you want to do.
I wasn't riding my bike, but I was very curious to go look at it, and so I walked over there. And yeah, the 6-foot drop, it's a pretty good drop. But also, what was surprising to me is how challenging and technical it is leading into the 6-foot drop with those. It's not smooth pavement where you're going to have your momentum to launch off it. There's all these rocks, and it's all in the different positions, and you got to change your line to be able to make sure you keep your momentum. So very easy. If you were to hit something wrong, you would lose that momentum and then just fall off. And so it is a tricky entrance to the World Cup 5 drop. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was surprised to see that. I was expecting just a smooth launch pad.
Yeah, you're turning. It's rocky. It's dusty. The riders have been doing a bunch of laps on this course all week, so it's it's definitely a more technical entrance than you would have if it was nice and smooth and you were just rolling into. But it's funny. You see these drops. We see them at the World Cup as well, and we watch the riders we're watching here. They're our best riders in the country. At the World Cup, they're the best riders in the world. So it looks pretty easy when you watch them do it. But these drops, they're at the top of climbs that your heart rate's pegged at 200 beats per minute, and then you got to do this crazy drop, or like here, like we were talking about, it's twisty, it's rocky, dusty, and it's just. Whenever it looks easy on TV, you're watching some people that are really good at what they're doing.
Yeah, not only that, when you have fresh legs and a fresh mind on lap number 1, it's not that bad. But yeah, when that fatigue starts to set in, things, you start to be able to make mistakes. And Riley Amos just out of the saddle, just pushing the pace. Definitely, I think he wants to do everything he can to try to get rid of Christopher Blevins. Blevins admits he's not on the top form. He's coming in a little bit under par. Going to be able to see what he can do. So Blevins said he wanted a test, and that's exactly what he's getting. Riley Amos is giving that to him. How long? You've been retired for a while, right? So let's just call it like that, a while. So obviously we got Specialized, we got Trek, we got Giant, we got Pivot. technology is always changing. Is there anything that really stands out like the biggest difference between the bikes now compared to let's just go with 10 years ago?
Sure. Well, the bikes are always evolving, obviously. When I started, we had 26-inch wheels, rim brakes.
Well, I'm not going back 30 years, Todd.
All right. One thing for the World Cup, they're riding bigger tires, heavier tires, because, for instance, here, these guys, a lot of them will be on a stronger casing tire than they might be at another track.
To prevent the slits and the sidewalls type thing?
Exactly, to prevent cuts and big compression. So the guys and girls are riding a bigger volume tire. When I raced, when I was finishing, we would probably ride 2.1s, maybe a 2.2. Most everyone will be on a 2.4 and a stronger casing tire. A lot of them will have inserts in. And the biggest thing would be the dropper post. They had them when I raced, but nobody used them.
It wasn't popular.
It wasn't popular. So because nobody did it, nobody wanted to be the one to use a dropper post. And now it's hard to imagine. And I think that's why we see a lot of these jumps and drops and everything, because with that dropper post, you're able to get the seat out of the way, and you're able to ride a lot of this stuff now that you couldn't ride maybe when I was racing, or only a few people could probably do
Right.
it.
So a big advantage of having the dropper post. When you were racing 2x in the front?
I raced mostly 2x, but 1x towards the end.
And now everybody is 1x? So that's a big difference as well with the 1x and a giant cassette in the back, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's funny. You never had a bigger cog in the back than you did in the front when I was racing, and now most of these riders are probably on a 5210 in the back, or 5210 in the back, and they're probably running a 36 or 38 in the front. So, yeah, that is a big difference. These guys too, a lot of them will be running a bigger front rotor than a rear rotor. It just gives you more
for the braking?
For the braking. So it'll give them more stopping power. Again, the tracks are so steep, and the World Cup courses get ridden. Their laps are short. There's so many riders. The World Cup cross-country tracks today are blown out the way the downhill tracks were when I raced, just because there's the tires, they're going through there so much, and they're just digging it up. And so having more braking power, bigger suspension, bigger tires is a big difference now for the World Cup and for modern cross-country racing.
So as things keep evolving as well, obviously we talked about it being 80 degrees out here. Nutrition, hydration, that's all changed a lot, and that's running, road racing, whatever kind of endurance sport, that has all changed around a lot with a lot of new information coming out that you don't need to starve yourself. You actually want to almost overindulge in the amount of carbs that you are taking in every hour to be able to make sure that you stay fueled and on top of your game.
Definitely, yeah. The consuming more food on the bike in the race is across the board right now for mountain bike, road race, even cyclocross. Almost everybody's eating a gel in the middle of a cyclocross race now. Whereas 5-10 years ago, no one was taking a gel in the middle of the race, maybe one or two riders. But the fueling has come a long way. Yeah, we get a little different view of the drop there, those guys coming off of that. There's also, it's funny, when you go up there, you kind of take off on the top rock. There's a rock that's slightly lower. It's almost like a step down after your takeoff area that you jump out over as you're coming to that landing. So your takeoff is on top, and then there's, like I said, almost like a step down that you have to clear. It's not really in the way, but when you stand there and look at it before riding it, it's definitely something that you notice.
A few of the spectators there at World Cup 5 watching that 6-foot drop. Two of our leaders with Blevins and Riley Amos continue to be able to push the pace. Remember last time it was a 40-second lead on the chasers. I think Carter Wood's in that blue jersey. Now what I couldn't tell is if he was off the front of the chase group or off the back of the chase group, because I didn't see the other ones, but they just showed Carter Woods going off that 6-foot drop just a little bit ago as we're waiting for our leaders to be able to make their way in. Coming into Stonehenge, getting able to whip around. Remember, Blevins undefeated in our cross country going over the last 5 years. Christopher Blevins has won this final day every single time he comes here. So he's got a little bit of a challenge on him as he's going to be seeing 3 laps to go. Riley Amos, current cross country national champion in that Stars and Stripes jersey. previous under 23 world champion as well, finding himself on the front. Now, for some reason, Riley likes attacking, coming through the start-finish line. He's looking over his shoulder a lot right now. This is the cat and mouse game. This could play into the hands right now of Gunnar, but Gunnar, he redlined himself for so long in trying to keep that gap at like 5 seconds. He's a little bit further back, but these two now starting to play a little bit of games right now. Hey, put your hands together. Guess what? It's our leaders making their way down the hill, getting ready to be able to come through, swinging from right to left, trying to get somebody to come to the front. It's 3 to go, riders. 3 laps to go, 3 to go, 3 to go, 3 to go.
Yeah, looks like here Riley goes again. Oh, Chris is ready for him this time. Riley must want to lead into this downhill section. We've seen him do this. This is the 3rd lap in a row now. He's tried to get in there first, so it looks like they're sitting up a little bit.
15 seconds slower than the lap before. So the first time Riley Amos attacked, they did a 10:14. This time, a little bit of gamemanship happening as they did a 10:31. And for Gunnar, 9 seconds back. So he went from 3 seconds back to 9 seconds back. Again, the legs have got to start hurting, especially when you're out there by yourself. You don't have the motivation of riding with somebody else to be able to keep pushing that pace, but Riley Amos definitely on the attack right now. He wants maximum points. 25 places deep for the HC points. I mean, we're watching 1, 2, and 3, and we're watching, the other guys that are going for 4, 5, 6, and 7, but you go back to 20th position, these riders in their head, they know there's these UCI points that they're trying to get.
Definitely. It looks like this chase group is broken up now. We got Austin, Jack, and Carter Woods, I think. So they've whittled down to 3, I believe.
Yeah, Owen Clark, I think, was still in there as well, as maybe just a teeny bit off the back right. Owen Clark was, you're right, he's coming off the back, only 4 seconds off the back now from that chase group. Owen Clark had a fantastic ride, finishing up in 4th place in that first cross-country day that we had on Wednesday. Right now, still, I mean, obviously, he's still in a good position. He's sitting there in about 7th place. But again, you go back to 20th, as all of these riders are coming by, seeing 3 laps to go, they know these points go 25 deep. They're going to be battling it out for that 20 to 25th to make sure they get something out of this bike race, and they're not out here suffering for nothing.
Exactly. For these races as well, the start position is so critical. So the points they're gaining here, these HC points, they're the highest category UCI point below like a championship level event, so below a national or
like a
continental World Cup. And so it is really hard to get points at the World Cup, but you can score a lot of points at your national level events. And when you have HC points available, it's critical because a lot of these riders will be trying to race the World Cup. And if you have minimal points, you're going to start further back, and the riders, obviously each level you go up, the competition gets more intense. So having a better start position at a World Cup, it makes it a lot easier. Instead of having to try to pass 20, 30, 40 riders, if you start that much further up the grid, it's less work you have to do, and it makes it much easier for them. So yes, these HC points are highly sought after. Yeah, it looks like Dane and Robbie Day just rolled through there. Both guys that have been supported by the national team at some of the World Cups we would go to when they were U23s over the past couple of years. So good to see those guys having a pretty good ride today. Dan English with Trinity Racing just coming through. He also is part of our U23 national squad at a lot of the World Championships and World Cups.
Robbie Day, this is race number 1 of the U.S. Cross Country Open Series presented by Violic Farms. And Robbie Day was the overall winner in 2025, picking up that. So that was a huge result for him. Mentioning race number 1 because we're here in Fayetteville. After this, for U.S. Cross Country Open Series presented by Violic Farms, we're going to California. Then we're going to be in Danville, Virginia, then Washington, and the final will be in Midway, Utah. So they got 5 rounds in 4 different regions with 10 different categories, all part of our U.S. Cross Country Open Series. Today, the HC, the big day for our mountain bikers in the cross country Walmart Pro Cup, fueled by Honey Stinger, as we're celebrating our 6th year here at Centennial Park. Purpose-built course specifically for mountain biking, threw in some cyclocross as well, as Oz Trails in Centennial Park, built from the ground up with a cross-country Olympic format in mind. And there's like 5 different regions that they can mix and match. And so since 2021, World Cup 5 has not been a part of any of the racing courses that are here. And so this year, they decided to be able to change it, make it a little bit more technical. The riders actually asked for it to be a little bit more technical. They wanted it to be more similar to what they're experiencing in Europe. And so they brought in another region to be able to put that 6-foot drop in there and include some of the rocky uphills and the downhills, making this a little bit more technical course.
Yep. And these riders, they've been coming here for years. So it's nice for the riders not only to have these more technical features like the drop, like those rough rock climbs, but just to switch it up a little. This is the 2nd cross-country race they will have done here this weekend. And so just adding new features, keeping it fresh for everybody. It's great the riders ask for it and they listen, which is, as a rider, is really nice. You feel like you're being heard, and it helps prepare them more for the races that will come later in the season. And, we were talking earlier about how you were saying how Blevins, he was coming in a little undercooked maybe to this race, goals later on in the year. And this year, the World Cup starts a little bit later than it has in the past. So, we've had Brazil for the past few years. That's been early. This year, the first race will be in
Korea,
South Korea. And that's also coming later in the season. So, yeah, when you have the same races at the same times year after year, you kind of develop a plan on how to get yourself ready for those. But with the World Cup starting a little bit later this year, going to a new venue, it's making these riders kind of rethink how they're coming into these earlier season races.
They got to change that preparation to be able to figure out how they're going to be on the top of the game. But it's everything you just said is exactly what Blevins said when we interviewed him here about changing his preparation and format to get ready for the pushback on everything that's a little bit later on.
Yeah, exactly. And, earlier in the week, I think it was 30 degrees here early in the week, maybe
on
Monday. And so...
Oh, that was Cole Patton right there from Giant. Sorry to interrupt you there, Todd, but just looking there, Cole Patton, former very good mountain biker, spent a ton of time mountain biking, then switched over to gravel and was kind of been a privateer in that gravel sector, and then coming back to mountain biking. And Cole Patton in that short track got up there in that top 10, and he had a pretty good transition trying to be able to make his way back into this.
Yeah, it's great to see Cole back out here. His girlfriend, Sevilla Blanc, they've spent a lot of time apart because she is obviously a World Cup racer, mountain bike, and he has been gravel. So even though they're both bike racers, as you know, when you're a bike racer, you're constantly traveling and gone. So they, having different schedules, they don't get to spend as much time together as maybe they would like. So hopefully with Cole transitioning, or I don't know if he's planning to do more World Cup or more.
Or if this is like a one-off, something to go on. Like there's no other races going on, so maybe he decided to be able to come out here. Not sure.
I think his heart lies with the mountain bike, so hopefully we'll see him at more mountain bike races this year.
Sevilla Blanc winning here in 2023, so very familiar with this race course as well.
Yeah, we got Dan English coming up the climb here. Dan, I think he just got his Irish passport as well. A lot of these riders, they have trouble keeping their number of days abroad in Europe below a certain number because they go over there for these World Cups. Instead of going back and forth constantly, a lot of them like to stay. Some of them have good training bases, friend groups that they can stay with, and it just makes it easier than going back and forth. But now with the limited amount of time you're able to stay in Europe, a lot of these riders, Vida Lopez, she has a Spanish passport as well. So having multiple passports is a big deal for these riders.
I believe that our rider leaders are going to be seeing 2 laps to go, waiting for them to come around. Last lap again, 10:31. It was a little bit slower as these two are kind of sussing each other out. Gunnar just he's there, but he's not there. It's like the entire race he has been just sitting about like 20 seconds back. He's just waiting for Riley Amos and Christopher Blevins to play a little bit more cat and mouse games, and then Gunnar Holmgren can get up there. Remember, Gunnar pulled for the entire first 2 laps, and then Riley Amos was the one that attacked here through our start-finish line, and every single time Amos is attacked on the smooth part of the pavement here, as our leaders, when they come around, are going to be seeing 2 laps to go.
Yeah, poor Gunnar. He's probably only been on the wheel for 5 minutes in this whole race. You're right. He was pulling the whole time they were together. Riley attacked. He got gapped a little bit. And
2 to go, riders. 2 to go. 2 to go. Sorry, 10 minutes. Let me see what that time was. 10:43. So that's about 15 seconds slower again. That's Gunnar coming through right there. So that's holding steady right at about 7 seconds for Gunnar now. He gained 2 seconds, but just not enough to latch onto the back of these guys. But yeah, Gunnar's been hitting the wind the entire time, either because he's been sitting in third or riding on the front. And Riley Amos, again, pushing the pace right now as they get ready to tackle into it. At the start of these races, you can see it's like really important it seems like it's really important for many of these riders to be able to get that hole shot there before this big descent. Being able to pick your own line. If you're first, obviously you can pick your own line. What if you're like third or fifth? You still in a good position, or is there a big difference between being fifth and being first?
Well, obviously, if you're first, you have a clean line. You get to go where you want to. It's getting dusty out there as well, so the further back in the group you are, the harder it is to see. Looks like we got some guys.
Yeah, this is going to be our next group coming in, as that's going to be, again, Austin Beard, Jack Springer, Carter Woods, and Owen Clark. Looking for that time, as they're going to be a minute back now. So again, they're not worried about what's in front of them. They are worried about each other and being able to get themselves on the podium, and it just depends on which place in the podium. That blue jersey is Carter Woods. You got Tyler Orschel with that light green just coming up to the front of the group right there. And then you have Austin Beard and Jack Springer.
Yeah, Jack, he's been sitting second wheel for most of his time in this group, the last lap or two. Austin dropping back, he's been on the front the whole time. So, you know, the race, it starts hard, maximum effort, red lined. You kind of settle in the middle laps. And now these last 2 laps or so, you know, right now they're saving it. They're getting ready for that final lap. You've been battling with these riders for the last 45, 50 minutes. You have an idea who's stronger, who isn't, but if you've put in some digs and you haven't been able to drop your competitors, then you start thinking about, okay, how am I going to get these guys at the end? So you
mentioned red line at the beginning, obviously, because you got to be able to make sure you have a good position. Then you're going to back it off right in about 80%, which is what these 4 guys are doing right now. And then on this type of course, 2.9 miles around, in some of our other races, we've seen people going a lap and a half out. Do you go a lap and a half out if you're in that group of 4, or do you wait for the last lap? And I know a little bit depends on how you feel, but let's say they're all even. How do you gamble? How do you figure that out? Last lap or a lap and a half out?
Well, I think it depends on what your attributes are. If you're a fast finisher, then maybe you just wait and follow the other guys. And if
you're a good climber, you go a lap and a half out, because then you have that big climb to try to be able to get away, and then you're going to have another lap of the big climb. So I see what you're saying. Depending on what your strengths and your weaknesses are, that would depend on when you might be able to attack. And the other part that, you know, these guys are all out here racing. How familiar are they with each other? We talk about strengths and weaknesses. Are they aware of like who's, you know, like for example, Tyler Orschel, Carter Woods, Austin Beard, and Jack Springer. Do they all know each other? Do they know like who can do what?
Yeah, they definitely know each other. They race together, maybe not all year long, but for multiple years they've raced together. So they can, they have an idea of what the other ones are good at. And then they've spent all day together right now. So they know if somebody's, a little bit faster on this descent, or maybe it seems like they're easier on the flats, or someone's a better climber. So they all have a pretty good idea of where the other ones are fast.
That's a great point. You learn about the other riders as you're going through the race. So do you think that's the same with Riley and Blevins? Are they learning about each other depending on, I guess, because every course is different depending on like what turn somebody might take faster or not. So I'm sure Blevins and Amos are sussing each other out as Amos finally has a little bit of a gap that he's been looking for. He's only had to attack and try about 10 different times to be able to get rid of Christopher Blevins, but it looks like it might have worked, and that's my answer, attacking on about a lap and a half out right now on one of the more difficult sections of this race course, as he knows he has a gap. So instead of cruising at 80%, and again, those lap times getting a little bit slower each time, I got a feeling this is going to be a little bit quicker lap, as he knows once he has a gap, he has to make sure it sticks, because you do not want to let the sprinting legs of Blevins latch onto the back of you.
No, and that's a big gap. I wonder if Blevins had a problem. Yep.
Blevins is
Here
gone.
we go. Gunner coming through. Blevins.
So Blevins is missing perhaps with the mechanical, not able to be able to look for and the thing is, when you get deep in the woods and you have a mechanical, like how do you, it's not like you just have a spare tire on you. You got to like run it out to be able to get like a fix.
This is a long way to the tech zone right here. If he likely had his issue before the previous tech zone, I would imagine. I'm not positive, but from here to the next tech zone is a long ways.
Looking for a red jersey, the mystery of Blevins, and we're not sure what happened or where. Now, so Riley Amos finds himself by himself as Gunnar Holmgren, and that's the danger of having a very technical and harder race circuit, is that you can get these surprise mechanicals that are going to sneak up on you. Look at these four, though. They're battling it out. They're going to be surprised that they're actually fighting for the podium now, a top three, as they thought all three riders were up the road. So a nice job waiting for our leaders. Once our leaders come around, they are going to be seeing Bell Lap with 1 to go.
Yeah, and so now Riley's by himself. Him and Gunnar were teammates for a number of years, so they'll know each other well as well. And, Riley's had...
And Gunnar just leaving this year to the new team. He was on Trek for many years, and that's a great point that they do know each other. And Gunnar now moving on to Pivot. And so Gunnar is going to be very familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of Riley Amos.
Definitely, yeah. We still haven't seen Chris come through.
For Chris Blevins, how devastating is it? Like
Here we go.
How devastating is it if you came out with no points for this HC? I mean, is that like devastating for him? Like for Tyler Orschel, it would not be good. Like, right? He wants these points. It's so important for him to move up. But for Blevins,
it doesn't matter.
Obviously he would love to be able to win here, but it's not like the end all. Where some of these other guys, this is their UCI race because there's not that many in the United States, so they got to take advantage of that. But look at that shot of Blevins, and again, it looks like a rear wheel just completely ripped apart as, again, long walk trying to be able to get to the neutral section. But right now, he's just trying to be able to get to some ice cream and some cold drinks as he's going to retire for the day.
Yeah, definitely. For Chris, these points, they're great, but winning the World Cup for the cross country and short track, he's got plenty of points.
He doesn't have to worry about
He doesn't need points.
He's getting a front row call up no matter what happens today.
That's right. He's going to need a new wheel, though, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so now Riley, he's in a great position. He's off by himself, got the gap. He's just got to meter his effort, right? Like,
if Gunnar couldn't close it before, I doubt he's going to be able to close it now, because Riley now doesn't have to save anything. Before, you had to be at 80% because you got to save something. If Blevins attacks you, you got to be able to keep something in the tank. He doesn't really have to worry about that right now, so he can just keep it at about, 85%, 90% effort. and actually, dig deep and, even suffer a little bit more redlining himself on some of those climbs, because the only person he has to worry about is himself and blowing up, because Gunnar Holmgren had a difficulty closing that gap. So Riley Amos in a very good position right now. Talked about him second in the cross country, second in the short track. Now finding himself in first to be able to pick up this HC win.
Yeah, exactly. Now he can take it easier too on some of those rougher sections we were talking about. Not push it, try to preserve his equipment.
Would that make him nervous seeing what happened to Blevins? I mean, he's going to know that Blevins blew out his tire and is not there. So will that be in the back of his mind? Like, hey, all right, I got to take it easy through this section.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it will. So he, backs it off just in those sections. We're talking about maybe 10 seconds of the course, take it easy, and he can go all in on the rest of the course. But with this size gap he has, for him, he can, if he's starting to overheat, starting to feel it, he can back it off a little bit. When it's hot like this too, it's easy to cramp. These climbs, they're short, some of them, but they're sharp. Those rock climbs require a huge amount of power, and so when you're spinning around like we see here, just kind of 90 RPM cadence, and then all of a sudden you hit a steep rock climb where you're down to 50 or 60, that could be easy for the cramps to hit you in those sections. So for him, he can just back it off and just take those potential issues out of the equation, more or less.
Last lap was a 10-minute and 43-second. When he was together with Christopher Blevins, they did a 10:31, fastest lap so far of the day, 10 minutes and 14 seconds. What is Riley Amos going to put in right now as he's getting ready to see one lap to go? Coming up the Talladega turn, if you're over by the start-finish line, you know his name. His name is Riley. Cheer him on as he's going to be seeing one lap to go. Riley Amos coming through now all by himself. The Stars and Stripes jersey. One to go, one to go. So 10:21, that's going to be 20 seconds faster than what he did previous lap. So Riley Amos now on a mission, trying to be able to make it through 2.9 miles left, 350 feet of climbing to be able to win here in Fayetteville.
Yeah, he just came by where we're sitting. His face, he looked focused out there. He didn't look like he was suffering. He looked like he was fully engaged, and Gunnar just came by as well. Still solid. Gunnar, he hasn't looked much different throughout this race. He's just been, almost there, but not quite. It's a great ride for him.
And yeah, it's a great point. Like his lap times are like the same. He's got his pace, and so when Riley and Blevins were able to go like 10 seconds faster, he couldn't really go 10 seconds faster. So he's not losing time, he's not gaining time. He's just doing a 10:43 like all the way through. So he's looking very consistent right there. Right now, currently, he's 29 seconds down on Riley Amos. Now, the race we want to be able to watch, obviously, with the first, but man, I'm looking forward to see what happens with this next group of riders coming in, because they got three of them together. So we have lost one. We got Springer, Clark, and Woods that are in there. So we are missing Orschel, Austin Beard also. And so Orschel and Austin Beard just a little bit off the back. There's your three. Springer in that black jersey sitting on the back. Riders one to go. All riders one lap to go.
Yeah, it looks like Austin's about 11 seconds off of that group. These guys, I would imagine they'll try to test each other on the climbs a little bit.
Tyler Orschel, though, he was there, and he's not now. So I wonder if he had a mechanical as well. Maybe we're going to see him coming through in just a little bit, but it just becomes strange when all of a sudden somebody is not there, because Tyler Orschel was top 5 on day number 1, and here he comes right now. So Orschel struggling a little bit right there as he's getting ready to be able to make his way through. Carson Beard, and that's going to be Logan Sadesky and Tyler Orschel with one lap to go. One to go, riders, one to go.
Yeah, that chase group, the race for third, that's going to be a good race. We'll see. I would imagine.
Do you think they know they're going for third? Do they have team members out there saying, hey, Blevins is not up there. There's only 2. You guys are going for third. Is that like communicated to them somehow?
It would be, but they will have also seen Blevins walking with his bike.
They would have been laughing when they were passing them.
That's right. So I would imagine they know they're going for third.
That's a great point, though, because they were behind, and Blevins there's only one way out. You got to take the course to be able to get out. So you're right. They would have passed them with Blevins walking down the middle of the road with the bike on his shoulder. So, yeah, they should be well aware that they're going for third, because when you're in that situation, before that, you knew there were 3 guys in front. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden there was a surprise rider that popped up in there. So that should be a good sprint scene to be able to get that top 3. Remember, we have top 5 on the podium. Once again, for the elite men, any of our partners are out there, soigneurs, we're going to try to do your podium about 10 minutes after the finish of the race. Again, we're going to do top 5 for elite men podium about 10 minutes after the finish of the race. Coming up next, our U23. That's going to be at 4 p.m. U23 races. We got a great race coming up as for our U23, going to have about 80 riders on the start line.
Yeah, it's great to see the field sizes here for these junior
races. The
races.
juniors are massive.
I mean, we had a qualifier race yesterday for 15-16 short track and 17-18, I believe. I think it was the biggest. Was it the biggest 17-18 field we've had at one of these U.S. Cups? I think.
All I know, it was big.
Yeah.
Yeah, a ton of juniors coming out. So it's great to see all these kids coming out. And I say it a million times, a big thank you. Like you're the parent, being able to bring out your son, and a big thank you to all the parents that take the time and the resources to be able to bring the kids out here, allow them to be able to mountain bike, be able to race, healthy and active lifestyle. It's all part of it. Like these kids can't do that without the support of their parents. And so that is a big part of it. And so great to be able to see so many kids coming out here and trying to be able to participate in the UCI event here. Some having good luck, some having bad luck. And Riley Amos right now having a little bit better luck as he's on the front by himself.
Yep, Riley's looking strong out here. For the kids, too, it's great. They get to race. They had a race yesterday, and they have one tomorrow. So today is an off day for them. So a lot of these kids will be out here watching these guys and girls race, the pros, getting to see Haley Batten earlier, silver medalist. Riley, 7th place at the last Olympics. It's awesome. These riders are so approachable as well. They sit there, they talk to every kid, they sign whatever they have. It's just we have a very unique sport.
It's a great point. And we talk about Blevins, we talk about Riley Amos. They came up through that, right? 15, 16, and 17, 18. They've gone through all of that. So they should be able to relate to these young kids, admiring and watching them to be able to race. But Riley Amos right now representing that Stars and Stripes jersey incredibly well as a cross-country national champion, leading here in Fayetteville. Only got about a half a lap left as Gunnar Holmgren trying to be able to get himself up there as well. Gunnar riding for that brand new team Pivot in that light blue jersey, only 26 years old. He was 19th and 14th last year here at these races and now sitting in 2nd place if he can hold on to be able to get to the finish. That group of 4 starting to attack each other right now on that long uphill, starting to be able to split themselves up. A lot of racing going on.
Yeah, that uphill, if you're strong, that uphill is where you want to make your move. If you're hurting in the group, you're hoping to make it over that climb. It looks like that's Jack there, maybe sitting in 5th now, slightly off the back of those 2 riders. But
that's where you can get your biggest gap, is on that uphill with those rocks. Like if you have good power and you're feeling good, that's where you're going to make your biggest difference on this race course, is on that long uphill. Because it's so technical and it just takes so much power to be able to get over those rocks, because every time you hit a rock, it's trying to slow you down about 5 miles an hour.
Yep. The first lap, those rocks seem a lot smaller than they do on the last lap. By the last lap, you feel every edge of those rocks. So great place to make a difference at the end of the race.
Riders coming up Arvest Mountain, half a lap to go for, again, battling it out, 3rd, 4th, and 5th up for grabs, along with the rest of the places. Points going 25 deeps here in this HC race.
Yeah, Owen Clark and Carter Woods, it looks like right now they're sitting 3-4. It'll be interesting to see, if they come to the line together or they can get rid of one another before the finish line. But they basically, they hit those jumps. They go through what I consider the roughest rock garden of the course, turn around, come back up the climb. They'll come back through the 2nd tech zone over the new World Cup 5 drop, and then they'll be into the start-finish area. So here, this looks like Riley coming through. He has that drop left, and yeah, he's got to make it through that drop, and then it's pretty smooth sailing, relatively flat from that drop to the finish line.
Yeah, looking to take a feed, just dumping water over the back of his neck, spraying a little bit on his face. Just enough to get a little bit of a cool off to make yourself feel a little bit better after a hard effort out there. As Riley Amos heading towards that jump to be able to do it for the very last time. World Cup 5, obviously that new element in our cross-country race.
Yep, this will be a nice win for Riley. He had a good start to this season in Puerto Rico. He had some good races down there. He actually started in Europe.
I was going to say, he did the opposite of Blevins. Blevins pushing everything back later. Riley actually started everything earlier, going to a ton of different races early on to be able to, for whatever reason, to be able to get his fitness going. But he's already got a ton of races under his legs.
He does. They had their team camp in Europe. Trek did this year. Specialized had their camp in Northern California. So Riley already been over across the pond once this year. Chris being able to stay home. And then Riley starting his season in Europe after that training camp at some European races, and then rolling it into Puerto Rico, and then here to the U.S. Cup. So he's definitely been doing some racing this year. But it's working for him. He's having a great start to the season.
Yeah, finding some good form, pushing a little bit bigger gear, coming into some of those final turns as well. Wearing that Stars and Stripes jersey as your national champion.
Yeah, this one's going to feel good. Especially it's such a bummer for Chris having that mechanical issue, but to be racing against last year's World Cup overall winner in the short track and cross country, and to come out with a win, he's going to be happy.
Moments away right now, coming up on hour and 15 minutes of racing, and finishing up in style, picking up an HC win. The rider coming out of Durango, Colorado, flying the colors, Riley Amos with Trek Unbroken, your winner at the HC in Fayetteville. Woo, look at the emotion right there, but he wanted that. And you could see it every single time attacking on the smooth pavement, right? He definitely was trying to be able to go for that victory. So congratulations to Riley Amos, a fantastic win. Waiting right now for Gunnar to be able to make his way around. Look for that light blue jersey as Gunnar Holmgren from Pivot Cycles. The Canadian rider be the next one to be able to make his way in. And that's going to put him on the podium as well. A second place up for grabs.
Yep, Riley getting a big hug from his soigneur, Wendy, there. Here comes Gunnar. Canada, second place. Like I said, these guys teammates last year. Gunnar, rough year last year, so this is going to feel good too. Both of these guys probably had a 2025 they would like to forget or do over, so to start off the season this way, just awesome.
Gunnar riding on the front for those first two laps and just dangling off the back of the other riders. Now we got that battle for third getting ready to be able to come in. Looks like it's Carter Woods coming in by himself. So congratulations, five-time national champion putting himself in a third place. Welcome, Carter Woods with an HC podium. And after coming off a horrible injury in November and recovering, this is going to put Owen Clark welcome in as fourth place.
Yeah, Canada, they always show up strong. So we got 3 Canadians in the top 4. We'll see who comes in here. Is this Jack Spranger coming in for 5th? So Jack, this U23 racing up in the elite race today. Jack is going to be happy with this. He was good on Wednesday, had a couple of flat tires or mechanical issues, so confirmation of his form. He won a race in Canada last weekend. So, just awesome ride. Tough out there. You can see the salt on Jack's jersey there.